Well, on one hand, the 69-yard kick was pretty cool. But on the other hand, when we lose a regular season game because Butker misses a PAT, I'm going to crash out. What's going on, guys? Hope your day is going well. And today I want to talk and recap the game yesterday, Chiefs at Buccaneers. They did lose this one 16 to 15, or 15 to 16 rather. Chiefs on the less end. But there's some good, some bad, some things to talk about, and let's get into it. All right, getting into it, I'd like to start by talking about the Chiefs defense as a whole. So before I talk about, standout players, just as a note, in the first half, when the Buccaneers were playing their first strings and their second string guys, their first 5 drives resulted in 4 punts and a turnover on downs. The Bucks didn't even score any points in the first half. They were 0 for 5 on third down. They were 0 for 1 on fourth down. And, as a defense, when you're trying to gauge, okay, how good is that, starting defense going to be? You have guys that are going to rotate in the first half when the Chiefs are playing, their some of their starters and their second string guys. And so seeing that really dominant performance in the first half, is really good to see from the defense as a whole. So a couple of weeks ago, I made a video talking about how one of the keys to the Chiefs season is going to be who's playing defensive end opposite Karlaftis. We've been kind of looking at who's there, looking for any standouts. Didn't really have any last week, but this week, I would definitely say one of the best players from this game, Chiefs-wise, is FAU. He had an incredible hit on the quarterback coming off the edge. He was a menace on the edge. Something that the box score doesn't really show, but when he was out there, he was making his presence known and felt. And that's something the Chiefs have sorely needed. And hopefully that carries over into the regular season when, maybe we'll see him getting some starting reps out there, see him playing, see how that transitions over. But for this game, my God, that hit, and I'll show it in here, but that's just an incredible hit. I believe Browning actually went to get checked for a concussion. Maybe a little close to roughing the passer, but good hit nonetheless. Moving on. All right, moving into Jaden Hicks. Hicks played another great game. He was great last week, and he was great again this week. I'd say his biggest highlight is a sack forced fumble on an inside blitz, a spag specialty. But besides that, just another solid game from him again, stacking these games, and just he's a guy that's probably going to be playing a lot in your starting defense. And so it's good to see him taking the steps in that direction. One last thing to talk about here, because we've had some worry about if Delane is actually going to be playing, what's the status of his shoulder. And he actually did see his first game yesterday against the Bucks. And he was really sticky in coverage. I don't think he had any notable plays other than, getting the other team to commit a personal foul after the whistle had blew, which is nice, showing some discipline there. But, small sample sizes, one game. Let's see if he looks, good again next week. And let's keep progressing on from there and, see if he can take the step to being that shutdown corner. I don't have any really good pros or cons against him. I think, once again, he played on that starting first half, and as a whole, that defense played a very good shutdown game on the Bucks. So switching over to the offensive side of the ball for a little bit, I want to start by talking about Emmett Johnson and Bashard Smith. So, unlike last week, in this game, Johnson took a bit of a step back, not necessarily a bad step back, just a little quieter night, 7 carries, 25 yards, and a goal line TD. I don't really have any big standout plays for him like we had looked at last week. Meanwhile, the leader in the rushing room for the Chiefs was actually Brashard Smith, who had 6 carries for 37 yards, including a really nice 18-yard rush on the outside out of shotgun, something that we tried to do too much, in my opinion, last year and couldn't do successfully. So seeing that's good. It'll be interesting to see when the regular season hits how often we do run out of shotgun, and if Walker can do that. I talked about this before, but Walker's not really statistically the best at running out of shotgun. So maybe Brashard Smith can be the person who carries that. But, thinking about this, looking ahead to the 53-man roster, are you going to try to keep 4 running backs? Because you've got this interesting note here where you've got Walker, DeMarcado, Johnson, and Smith. And, if you're going to take three quarterbacks, which is what's shaping up to be, then, maybe you only bring three of those guys. And who's going to be the odd man out? It's worth noting in this game. So Walker got the start, played a couple snaps. Then DeMarcado played in the first half this week. And then Johnson and Smith did not play until the second half, which is the opposite of last week, where DeMarcado was actually the last running back to get snaps, and Johnson and Smith actually got them first. So I wonder if that's the Chiefs staff trying to transition and just give those guys different looks, or if it's reflective of how they feel about those running backs. I'd be a little weirded out, especially, you had Johnson, who had a great performance last week in terms of running back. Brashard Smith didn't look bad either, but now those guys are playing in the second half. So I would lean towards it, just maybe a different look, maybe at a different time in the game, see if the time of game affects them, get some guys some earlier reps against better competition or worse competition. Who knows? But it's something to keep in the back of our minds and see what they do next week. I would think you would shift back to how it was previously, where DeMarcado was playing the back end of the games, just because in terms of the running back room, to me, he's kind of the odd man out. They signed him to that 1-year deal. And, with Johnson being, such a good running back, Walker's obviously a lock. And it's really down between him and Brashard Smith. And Brashard Smith is a rookie on his second year of his deal. So he's not probably going anywhere. If Johnson or Smith can end up being the pass protection guy, there really isn't a place on this roster for DeMarcado to me. We'll see what the coaching staff thinks, and let's go ahead and move on. All right, so I want to talk about wide receivers for a little bit. So Cyrus Allen, the big standout last week, very quiet night for him. He had 5 targets, 3 catches for only 7 yards. Played earlier in the game, didn't do a ton. Then again, the Chiefs' offense wasn't that dynamic. The leading receiver was actually Jalen Royals last night, who had 6 catches, 51 yards, including a nice 17-yard snag from Nussmeier in the third quarter. However, a lot of the guys just had 1 catch or 2 catches or just a couple. Nothing super stand out in this game to me in terms of the wide receiver room. Some of that has to do with the quarterbacking. Justin Fields feels like he doesn't like to throw the ball more than 5 yards. And that's not necessarily a slight on him, but he just doesn't target downfield targets in the same way, right? When I watch Nussmeier throw that ball to Royals, right? That's a throw that I'm like, oh, if Justin Fields is in there, he's not making that throw. Instead, he's going to try and scramble the rest of the way to the outside. So, it's the difference between gaining like 6 yards and gaining the 17 that we did end up getting. So ultimately, nothing really stand out. It's nice to see Royals have a good game. A lot of people have written him off, including me. We'll see what happens in the roster and going forward on the team. But, I don't think let's see if he can continue to stack good games in a row. All right, last up, the big one. Let's talk about BUTKER. The intro was a little bit of a joke, but it is true that, like, it's really cool to see him make a 69-yard field goal that could have been good from, like, 75, right? I mean, that's an incredible kick. But on the other hand, in this game, he missed an extra point. Granted, that was moved back, so it was around like a 43-yard field goal, as for the extra point. But then he missed another 40-something yard field goal too in this game. And if for me, it's far more important for a kicker like BUTKER to be, nearly automatic inside 40 yards than have him be able to drill a kick he's never going to make in the regular season, right? Like, what is the likelihood that the Chiefs even attempt a field goal beyond 60 yards in the regular season? Very, very little. Definitely a problem that is coming from last season, right? So year before, BUTKER had to get a cleanup surgery on his plant leg. He used to kick by going down onto a knee on his plant leg when he kicked. Well, after the cleanup surgery, he shifted that, and now he doesn't plant anymore. And he's never really fully returned to his 2023 form where he was near perfect for the Chiefs as a kicker. Last year, he missed 4 extra points. He missed 3 field goals from plus 50 yards and another 2 from inside 40, or sorry, inside 50, so 40 to 49 yards. So, you hope that that's something that doesn't carry over into the regular season. And if we get to a situation where the Chiefs lose it, to like this game, right? The final score 16-15, Chiefs lose. Butker left 4 points off the board by missing that extra point and missing that field goal, which were 2 of the easily makeable kicks. Even if you take away the 69-yarder that let's say he misses that. If he makes those other 2 kicks, the Chiefs win by 1. So I'm not on, team, it's great to have a long range kicker, but you need a guy who's automatic inside of 50 yards, right? And if Butker isn't going to do that, and if this continues to be a problem throughout the season, then we need to potentially bring in some competition for him. I know it's hard to move on from him. He just got a really big contract in the offseason a year or two ago. I don't necessarily remember exactly, but you can't continue to rely on a guy who is inconsistent for your kicks, especially once it begins to cost you regular season games. All right, and that's my recap of preseason game 2. If you guys have anything that I missed or any other highlights you want to talk about from this game, go ahead and put those in the comments down below. We can discuss them down there. And with that, guys, have a great day, and I will see you next time.